In this video, I want to talk about a money concept that is pretty much a game changer when it comes to lifestyle design. And that concept is financial freedom. And I just want to talk about what that means to me and how I've thought about it in the past versus how I think about it now, and why it is instrumental in designing a lifestyle on my own terms, right? So let's get into it. So basically, financial freedom. In the past, I honestly just never had I had no idea, never had a concept of financial freedom. It's nothing. It's not a word or a term that had ever come up um, before discovering the FIRE movement, which I'll get into before. As far as my relationship with money is concerned, there were a few things that I knew to be true, right? Either you had enough money to do the things you wanted to do and buy the things you wanted to buy, or you didn't. And of course, there are different magnitudes of that on both ends of the spectrum. You could be rich or not, you middle class, you still may be able to still have enough money to do the things that you want to do without being, not without being considered rich. But or you could be rich, or you could be extremely, rich and wealthy, right? And just on the other end of the spectrum, you could be middle class but and just be living paycheck to paycheck. You could, be low income, etc. It could just literally go both ways. So, but ultimately, it was either you had money to do the things that you wanted to do and buy the things you wanted to buy, or you didn't, right? That was pretty much it. And there's a couple of other things that I knew to be true, which was basically life as far as money was concerned is you worked, you work to earn a paycheck to be able to buy things, right? That was it. And then as I got older, I would, um, came to understand and learn about saving money. But again, it still was going into that concept of, you work, you earn money to buy things you wanted to buy, and saving just kind of came into there, and you save the money, for the big things that you wanted to do or buy, right? So, and that was pretty much it. I would just save money in order to spend it later, not really as a tool to build my financial future, right? And that was again, and that was pretty much my, relationship, with money. I had a good relationship with it. Like I was pretty good at managing my money, but again, not really understanding or knowing that you could use money as a tool to build, your future. And that didn't come along until I discovered FIRE, which I didn't really discover FIRE until I was probably around 38 years old. And I really honestly didn't put it into practice right away because it seemed not necessarily unrealistic. It just seemed almost impossible considering where I was, at the point in life that I was at the time that I discovered it. And I'll do a separate video about that. But, you know, once I discovered FIRE, though, FIRE is financial independence, retire early, right? And it's basically, you know, a framework that you can follow in order to accumulate, you know, enough assets that would ultimately, provide you with income to replace, that could pay for your living expenses, and thereby allowing you to retire early, from traditional, work, if you wanted to, right? So that's in a nutshell, what the FIRE movement is all about. So basically, once I discovered the FIRE movement, I learned the definition between the two main concepts, which is the financial independent part and then financial freedom, which was also introduced. And the thing about that is a lot of people will use those terms interchangeably, but they're really not the same thing, as I came to learn as I began to learn more and more about personal finance and financial independence and things of that nature. And so just to kind of make the distinction between the two, you know, as I've mentioned, I kind of already went into it, but financial independence is basically when you have enough assets or passive income sources such as real estate, which is also assets, but ultimately you have enough assets that the income generated from those assets is enough to completely pay for your living expenses, whether you calculate your living expenses on a monthly basis or an annual basis, right? It doesn't matter. Your assets are making enough money for you, whether it's from dividends, interest, rental income, etc. That that alone can pay all your bills, and pay for your lifestyle, right? That's what financial independence is in a nutshell. Financial freedom, on the other hand, is basically you have the ability to make decisions without money being a constraint on those decisions. And decisions could be any lifestyle decision that life decision that will require money. Money might be a big part of it. For instance, taking a vacation, or you know learning a new skill, or buying something that might be particularly expensive, right? Um, Whatever it may be, whether, and it doesn't even have to be, leisurely stuff. It could literally be also like getting, if your car breaks down, getting a car repair, if something breaks in your house, you know, it can be anything, any type of financial decision, right? Um, Being financially free will allow you to make that decision without, worrying about the money aspect of it, right? So once I kind of learned the distinction between the two, um, what ultimately ended up happening was financial independence became, and still is, it's the ultimate goal, right? Ultimately, that's what I want, to be financially independent, to make work optional, right? Um, for the foreseeable future, right? Once you reach that goal. But financial freedom, on the other hand, that became the immediate goal. That that was like, okay, I could hit, financial freedom probably a lot sooner than I'll be able to hit financial independence, because when you kind of sit back and think about everything that becoming financially independent entails, if you pursue that path, you're ultimately going to hit a degree of financial freedom, if not become completely financially free, on the road to becoming financially independent, right? So I'm like, all right, bet that's what I'm going to aim for, at least, if nothing else. If I don't ever reach financial independence, I'll still be for the better by, um, you know, pursuing financial freedom at minimum, right? And so that's basically what I took away from, well, it's kind of, yeah, ultimately that was the ultimate takeaway from discovering the FIRE movement. And like I said, I'll do a separate video about FIRE and my journey and my quest for that. But this video is really about what financial freedom means to me. But I had to kind of give a bit of a, context before just like jumping right into it. At least that's how my brain works, right? So yeah, so discovering FIRE, and then just kind of learning and realizing that money can be used as a tool to build your future, or to, you know what I mean, as opposed to just money being something you you work for just to spend, right? And now I understood how to be more intentional about the money you do earn, right? And the best way to spend it, which would be to invest it, right? Save and invest it, right? So, in any event, so now jumping into financial freedom and what that means. Again, it just means being able to make financial decisions without, the money aspect of it hindering you, right? And what I mean by that is there's some things where, will give you stress and anxiety about having, where's the money going to come from? Oh, this thing is going to cost me so much money. I'm probably going to go into debt. I'm going to have to use my credit cards. How long is it going to take me to pay it back? You know, for some, people, that's tough. Like, you know what I mean? Being able to, or having to make decisions, like, especially when it comes to things that, are very costly, right? So that's basically what it boils down to for me, is honestly not being tethered, not being held down by something, whether it's debt, you know what I mean, or some other obligation that, some sort of other financial obligation, and just being free to a certain extent to make choices and to have options. Case like the perfect example is being able to take a career break, right? Um, you know, Saving up an FU fund, which I talk about a lot. Um, that having an FU fund is a degree of financial freedom. Not having any debt is a degree of financial freedom, just because those things can open up more optionality for you. I think that's a word. Options, optionality, options. Those things can allow you to have more options in your life. You know what I mean? When it comes to money, right? So nothing too crazy. That's really just it. Just not being held back by money in order to make decisions. That's really what financial freedom, means to me. And I wanted to talk about it just because when we talk about lifestyle design, at the end of the day, let's be real, you need money to do things. You do. You need it. And it's not about harping so much on, it's not all about money. We're talking about money, we're talking about mindset, we're talking about, making decisions and living with intention, just all of that thing plays into it. But at the end of the day, you need money to live. You need money to do things. And until you can, kind of reckon with that side of it, it's going to be really tough to try to design a life that you, truly want to live, right? So I just kind of want to touch on these different aspects of it, particularly the money side of it, because it's important. No, money is not everything. I definitely understand. I definitely understand that money isn't everything, but it is a necessity, and you need it in order to, accomplish things in this world. So um how financial freedom, plays into, lifestyle design, it's literally, it's one of those things where it is definitely um a what am I trying to say, like it's definitely not an asset. It's just an important key. It's like a key aspect in lifestyle design, because um ultimately when we're thinking about what our life, what we want our life to look like, whether it's the type of work we do or the place we live in, or just ultimately what we want our day to look like, you know, there's going to always kind of be an undercurrent of, undercurrent of financial, you know, security, stability, and freedom, to it, that we definitely want to consider, right? So I just wanted to touch on that, briefly, because it is something that I am actively, working towards, financial freedom on different levels. And, the ultimate goal is financial independence. And when we talk about lifestyle design, I just understand the importance of having, my financial house in order. So it's definitely something, if you're considering, taking a career break, or if, you've decided that the life you're living, you know, isn't working, is not working, it doesn't align with, the things that you value and how you truly want to live. This is just, another video. It's one of those things that you want to start considering and thinking about, is the financial aspect of it, what it's going to cost you, how you can begin using money more as a tool in order to achieve the lifestyle that you want. So I'm just going to leave you with that. I'm going to wrap it up. Just let me know in the comments, what does financial freedom mean to you? What's your definition of it? This is just my perspective, what I've learned, and how I interpret it based on my experience so far, since discovering the FIRE movement a few years ago. So I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And until the next time, I will see you in the next video. Take care.